This is a Let's Talk Church Safety and Security microsode with your host, Paul Buckner. Hey, sheepdogs. So something a little off track from what we normally talk about, but a situation came to my attention recently with the church where a member of the staff left. And when the staff member left, some items that belonged to the church actually ended up missing. And unfortunately, just because someone claims the name of Christ doesn't mean that they are living their life for Christ. Doesn't mean that they're even saved, unfortunately. Now, saved people make mistakes. He who's without sin, let him cast the first stone. If you say you're without sin, you are a liar and the truth is not in you. We're not perfect. But the church was told when this individual was contacted, the church was told that a third party had these items. Not even remotely true. And so it came to my attention of how do we figure this out? And I said, because I know this church, I've been in this church, and I said, well, you guys have got some amazing cameras there, really nice cameras. Oh, that's right. So first off, sometimes we can forget about the resources we already have. The person has not been gone from that position very long. The odds of the footage having been overwritten on their security camera DVR setup, slim to none. But the item is in particular is one item in particular that is large enough that it would probably be hard to hide trafficking it out of the building, carrying it out. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes of it. But it's sad when people do things and accuse an innocent party of being involved in it when they had no involvement at all. And that just brings that around that sometimes a threat can be that of someone internal to the church just taking things that don't belong to them. Sadly, there's a sense of entitlement sometimes, maybe. I don't know, I can't speak to the mindset. Tragic situation. Years ago, I was aware of a church where there was a member of their worship team that a laptop had been donated to the worship team of that church. And very bad situation. She was caught in some pretty bad sin, and she ended up taking the laptop, and she left the bag, but she took the laptop and the charger, as I recall, if I remember the story correctly. And just people will feel a sense of entitlement and take something knowing that it's going to be difficult to prove that they have it, and knowing that a lot of times the church won't pursue charges. And it's an easy thing to let slip. Now, whatever you do with it on the backside of that is your call. But this is one more reason that cameras are so important, and being able to having and again, this is something that as church security we don't think about a lot, but do we have asset tags, or do we have the serial numbers of pieces of equipment, electronics, instruments, things like that belong to the church and not to a worship team member or a staff member? And it's it's easy to forget about that and step over that, but that can actually be a very costly situation. I mean, a lot of churches, their overhead projection setup is tied to one computer. Somebody takes that computer, and you're out of that. Do you have that serial number written down somewhere? And if you have the kind of relationship with your church, where your church, your pastors, your board, whatever, where you can just say, hey, I'd like to go and get all of these inventoried, or you may go to a church where it's already been done, but there needs to be some kind of a central repository. And then maybe every few months, if it's not a piece of equipment that gets used every Sunday, every few months there's something done with it. Because unfortunately, people will come into an environment like that, and again, that sense of entitlement. We think of thieves being somebody outside of the church. I knew of a guy that was actually taking money from a food bank that was part of his own church. And the thing was, in his mind, he was entitled to take it because he was helping people outside of the church, which the mission of the church was to use that food. But there was no way to track it, and he didn't know what food he was taking. So there was food that was used for Sunday evening, Wednesday evening dinners at the church for their kiddos, and it was earmarked for that, and he didn't care. He would just take it. And so, unfortunately, sometimes you have folks that they might even be well-intentioned in what they're doing. You know, I've known of churches where they've put game cameras up because the location, they couldn't put a long-term camera up. There was a church that I knew of that an individual insisted on unlocking the door every time they were in the building, but refused to lock it. And so they finally, if I understand the story right, they put up some kind of a game camera to track this individual, and then had a heart-to-heart, you know, hey, quit doing this. Imagine how, it's my hand grenade approach, you know, to reaching people wherever they're at. Imagine how you would feel if you came in and the church had been completely emptied because that door was unlocked. You appeal to their morals, you appeal to their logic, you appeal to their values, their emotions, their values, and their logic, and appeal to that and be like, hey, can I get you to stop doing that? You know, I would hate it if one of our female staff members or volunteers was assaulted because they came into the church and somebody was here. Oh, wow, that's terrible. I never thought of that. I would, you know, it would be a huge, I've literally seen people, because that's the way they think, their logic. I've literally seen people where I'm like, you know, it would cost the church a lot of money to have to replace this stuff if it was stolen. Oh, nothing else worked. It's just where they were in that moment, but that got them to listen. And so sometimes the threat is internal. Sometimes the threat might even be well-meaning. Sometimes we may have to have tough conversations with people, and that's one more reason to have those cameras. It's a finite expense. You know, it's a fixed expense. You buy the item, you set it up, and then it's running. And a lot of people will forget that are volunteers or staffers. They'll forget, and it can save you. We oftentimes think of cameras as being something, oh, well, that's because of robberies and child molesters and things like that. Really, in a lot of cases, those cameras, they can actually help us with much smaller things like petty theft. You know, this person's wallet was stolen while they were getting baptized. Happened at my last church. This person's digital camera was stolen because they stepped over to go to the restroom or something and came back and it was stolen. Happened at my last church. And they eventually were able to figure out who the culprit was, get some of the material returned, and the person repented and had quite the change of heart. So that can all help us to love our flock in the right way. So anyway, hopefully that's a thought that blesses you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. Remember Semper Disciplina, that lifestyle of discipline training. God bless. If you enjoyed this microsode, check out the video and audio versions of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast.